Welcome to a special edition of Capital Talk with E+ TV6. We're pleased to be working with the Chamber here in Jackson and to welcome our state representatives for Madison County and for the city of Jackson. They include State Senator Ed Jackson, State Representative Johnny Shaw, and we'll be joined later by State Representative Chris Todd as we are doing this video. He had a work issue to come up, and he'll be joining us, and so we look forward to his presence being added to the discussion. Good to have you gentlemen with us.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate this opportunity to talk with you. Well, we're at an unexpected break in this year, and the legislature is scheduled to go back into session in June.
1st of June right now.
But we did pass a budget, right?
Yes.
Is that a final budget? Is that kind of a continuing resolution budget? What kind of budget is this?
More than likely, it's the final budget.
Final budget, okay.
But who knows what will come up in June? This never happened before in this state. So as of right now, it is the final budget, and that's the only thing we were required to do, the legislature is required to do by the Constitution, is to pass a budget. So that's what we did.
And the reason I was a little hesitant, because there are some other legislation that some people wanted in the budget that they didn't get, who might request that we go back and try to add it to the budget when we go back, if we get back in June.
So it can be amended.
Yeah, it could be.
Yes. And what depends on that is there was, going into this session, there was a huge surplus of money in this state. And we had a very healthy rainy day fund, $1,150 million. And now this virus has come along, and it looks like it's going to cut down on all the collections that we're making with the state sales tax,
right.
and the
Business
franchise and excise tax.
Yeah.
Those are the two major revenue streams we have.
The sales tax still account, I had said, but I haven't covered this while, that sales tax was in essence about 50% of our revenue. Is it still?
Give or take, probably.
Okay, so
that's a good guess.
We're a sales tax dependent state, economic engine.
We are. And the thing of it is, I think the rush here with the virus was that we get something passed to make sure that the executive branch of government, which is the governor and all, could go ahead and do
continue operation.
What was necessary to get the ball rolling to take care of Tennesseans during this
A couple of questions. On what did you base revenue projections? How do you project revenue when we're in this totally unknown thing here?
Well, of course, when we're in the unknown, all the sales tax is just almost completely quit in the state, and we're very heavily dependent on that, and then the franchise excise tax and a couple other smaller revenue streams. But how we do that, the people in the franchise, and I mean in the ones who manage that part of the budget are the ones who pretty much decided on this is what we need to do for the budget.
So what was they predict flat revenue with last year or lower revenue than last year? How did they come up with revenue, or did they come up with revenue projections?
I'm not for sure they came up with it when we hit this COVID-19. I'm not sure. We had the TANF funds, which was wonderful. We didn't know why. Everybody was wondering, what are we going to do with this? Everybody was asking for the money, and the good Lord,
the unspent federal money.
The good Lord sent us a reason why to use them. So I think they just came right in handy for us.
It's odd that God took care of Tennessee and didn't tell the other states.
Didn't tell the other states He's going to take care of us. And so I think
so. God is evolved, is what you're saying.
Yes, of course He is. Of course, and I think that helped a lot. But I'm not for sure we had a plan for this moment. We had a plan based upon the normal year.
So this budget will be funded, if it has to be, out of surplus funds and other things, if it has to be.
That's right.
Definitely. Definitely. Yes.
Now, the governor, in his State of the State address and all, talked about a 4% pay increase for teachers and several other initiatives, $600 million in new initiatives for education and other things. Did that all go away? Is that in this budget? Or
have teachers I think the simpler way to simplify it is teachers are going to get about half of what they would have gotten. And Ed, you correct me if I'm wrong.
4% was what was budgeted. 2% is what they're going to get.
Is what they're going to get. And everybody basically that was going to get, say, whatever they're going to get, maybe like half of what they would have gotten because of the coronavirus.
Is this budget then in total larger than last year's?
No, actually a little smaller.
A little smaller.
A little smaller than last year's.
Okay. So what else changed then? There are not as many increases. what was taken away or whatever to balance this all
What
out?
was taken away were a lot of the budget amendments after the budget was finalized.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the budget amendments, those that weren't mission critical,
Okay.
were taken away.
Right.
And they were put into the fund to budget our state.
Okay. Now, we were looking for $20 million to support the new lodge out here. Did that survive in the
That
budget?
may not have made it. We don't know.
Well, actually, that bucket list pocket did not make it, but it's not dead. It's still out there in the future budget that comes along after June.
Okay.
And you got to understand, until we go sign it, die.
Okay.
This legislative session is still alive.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
That's why we could go back and do, I'm not saying we're going to.
It's just recessed
That's right.
temporarily.
It's just temporarily recessed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those things are still going to be, because we were looking for mega site money. We were looking for money for this
And we
this
had
project.
mega site money, remember. Now, we had some money in for mega,
Right.
already in for mega site.
Okay.
Now, if that money might have got shifted to someplace else in this,
So,
I don't know.
So in the last hours, then, when you're headed toward this deadline, we're going to recess and whatever. Those kind of things, even you will not know.
It happened so fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
As fast as this virus came along,
okay.
our budget.
It's like we got to approve something. Here it is, and let's go. Because sometimes that disturbs people because they think you're right on top of it. And, but in circumstances, you may get it right before. That's what the congressman said.
Yeah.
That I think the congressman said he had their budget came to them at the final version. Came to them at 11:45, and they were going to vote on it at 12:30.
Yeah.
And
And therefore, I mean, something's going to be missed, but I think Ed made a good point when he said, there were necessary things that we had to put in there to take care of Tennesseans during this time. But some of the things, a lot of budget amendments. Right. I mean, I had a little budget amendment myself. It got lost in the process, because it was not important for this time.
So gavel comes down, the vote has been made, and then afterward you have to go start looking and say, is that thing in there or not? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it in there? If not, then number one, we're going to bring this back up in June.
Yeah.
Okay.
We pretty much knew what are not going to be in the budget amendment after the behind the budget, which we always ask for, things to help different causes here in our district.
Right.
So most of those were taken out. If they weren't mission critical, they were taken out and put behind put behind this June budget.
Was corrections looking for expansions, or I know the governor has talked about a lot of new initiatives as far as maybe not detaining as many people, allowing additional methods of supervising people that can get out on bond or whatever. Are those initiatives still in there?
Steve, I wish I could answer that. I know there was some money put in there for the parole officers.
Okay.
They didn't get a pay raise last time, where the correctional officers did.
Okay.
Got a very nice, in order to be able to recruit, they had to increase it. So parole officers, I hope it's still in there, but I can't answer that because I'm just not sure. I need to look that up.
Okay, so many of those different things.
And we left so abruptly, a lot of things we can't answer. Normally, there are things we could tell you today we can't tell you because we had a rough ending, a real fast, rough landing, okay? So we all just kind of got out of town as fast as we could. In fact, I got out a couple of days before these guys did because, it was just important that we protect our health and protect the health of other Tennesseans best we could.
This is a special edition of Capitol Talk with the Chamber here in Jackson. State Senator Ed Jackson is with us, State Representative Johnny Shaw, and we've been joined by State Representative Chris Todd. It's good to see you. We were talking about this budget process at the end and the vote and everything and exactly what was in that budget. Is there anything you want to comment on about that process? Was it comfortable for you or was it hectic? Or
it was very hectic. I'm not going to say comfortable. It was necessity in full swing. And we knew that going in. I knew it Sunday evening when I went up for a leadership meeting. And it was determined that here's what our parameters are. If for example, if one person in our clerk staff came down with this or was exposed, then all of the clerk staff would be quarantined at home. We're shut down at that point. We can't do anything, no matter whether we're well or not. And so knowing that, and we did have one kind of a close call. We had someone with a different group that is on staff that had two parents that lived with this person that were hospitalized with COVID-19. And they had not been at work, fortunately, but they came in last Saturday, a week ago. and did some work in the office and made everyone aware what they were doing, and they went in sanitized behind this person, and so there would be no risk there.
Okay.
But it made us very aware of how quickly this could change and cause us to be in a position where we wouldn't have a quorum on a committee or even on the floor. And so we knew that the budget, as critical as it is for this state to keep moving, had to be passed. Again, I couldn't sit here and tell you that I or anyone else knows everything that's in there. Of course, I don't know that on a normal year you can do that. Quite frankly. There are so many things that are automatic.
Let me know, man. Okay.
One of these days, maybe, but right now, there's so many things that are carried forward every year that this is the way we've done it, and we're just going to carry that money forward and budget that for the next year. Those are things I'm going to be digging into more and more. But
okay, so this was a constitutional necessity. I mean, the one thing the Constitution mandates is that Tennessee have a budget and it be balanced, and so that has to be done. If nothing else is done,
that's the only thing
that has to be done.
Yeah.
So then, when this threat hits, as you say, then there's a danger we're not going to have a quorum, whatever. So we've got to do this now.
Yeah.
So the budget was approved then on Friday night?
Thursday night at 11:30.
11:30. Okay.
And one of the things that we did earlier this year, it just brought to my attention, we had some early on meetings, some budget hearings early on where we really couldn't make any decisions, but we had already heard from a lot of different departments. When years past, we didn't do that. So we saved ourselves a little time by going through some of the process on the House side early.
Okay.
Whereas if we had waited like we normally do, I don't think you would have got that budget even on last Thursday like you did.
Okay.
So we kind of got ahead of the game, not knowing how important that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's a very good point.
Yeah.
Our speaker had been planning to do that and consulted with a number of us on the Finance
okay.
Committee if we would be willing to go through that process.
Okay.
Got a little pushback from the administration because they weren't used to doing that, and we all knew this was a preliminary budget. It basically was what the departments were going to present to the governor before the governor had any chance to put his priorities on that. We knew that going into November. We had a full week, and in December we had a full week of hearings on that. So we got the preliminary budget knowing it was not final, and so that gave us a lot of insight.
So that change in procedure then to have the hearings in November, December with the state house, which had not been done.
Right.
I mean, it's always been an administration.
Because if we start session January, 10th or so every year, but we started back in December. Doing some things.
Well, it makes some
like
headlines because the House has never really gotten involved in that budget process.
Yeah.
Is that something that'll be done each year?
I think so.
I do
From
too.
now?
I think
So it worked
this
out well.
year proved that it's worth doing every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it give you more feel for the budget, more input into what's going on? Because usually the administration has its own budget hearings, and the commissioners from the departments come in and present to the governor and his staff, and then they formulate the budget and then send that to the House. This way the House had its own hearings.
Yeah.
Could ask its own questions.
Sure.
Is the Senate contemplating doing the same thing?
Well, I haven't heard that, but I think the discussion here is it's a good idea. It gets you a good feel for the budget before, I mean, so you don't have to rush through it during session.
Yeah, because like I said, the administration, to a certain extent, may feel like it's giving up part of its turf, right?
I think probably so.
You remember the old saying, the Senate's the Senate.
I do remember that well. Yeah.
I think Ron Ramsey said that a lot.
Well, I think his predecessor said it even more. The Senate is the
My
Senate.
friend, the Senate. But we did get an early start in the House, and that helped out a lot. I know it helped Chris and I and other members, I think, said the same thing. You know, we were hearing things back in December that we normally don't hear until late January or sometime early February.
Or later February. Well, and also I think the Senate probably got a similar jump in that their people were watching this as well.
Okay.
So, you know, you can monitor their staff.
Everything is streaming. All right. Well, that is because, you know, like I said, the executive branch is going to be turf protective, you know, to say, hey, the job of presenting the budget is up to us. Then the House and Senate are just to dispose of this budget. But not get muddled in the process in advance. But it makes you more comfortable with the process.
Sure.
Well, it is ultimately our responsibility. No money gets spent in this state without going through the legislature by Constitution. So the administration's budget is a proposal.
Was this Speaker Sexton's idea, or had it been talked about in the House prior to this?
I think it was his idea. Some of us had some input, but primarily.
Well, it came a little early. Maybe something Chris don't know. I was talking to the chairman of finance way back, and I said, look, I've been on finance ever since I've been here. You know, all these years I've been here. Why don't you consider this? And I think she might have taken it to the speaker at that time. Because, I mean, you know, if you sit on a committee long enough, you learn things. and new ways to do things. Sometimes that works out better.
Okay.
But some of the older members had been discussing that, and then they took it to the speaker. He liked it, and we moved on it.
Well, I don't know if Governor McNally's ever said the Senate is the Senate, but he may start picking that mantra up. And we'll see if the Senate does that then this issue. The anticipation, if I'm understanding you, is that when we get to June then, that once you go through this budget, if there are things that are not in there you feel like need to be in there, and you'll have time to, we'll know more about revenue collections for the rest of this fiscal year, because the fiscal year will end June 30. I still have a pretty good idea of where we're headed, what's the effect of this, whatever this shutdown is or cutback or whatever we're into. But your feeling is that you'll have an opportunity then to go through this budget and say, hey, we need to amend it and add this or take away this or do whatever.
Oh, we know we will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a definitive date, or is it kind of floating depending on condition, or to go back to reconvene?
When we recessed, it was June the 1st.
June 1st,
which is
okay.
a Monday.
On Monday,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
First
the
Monday in
earliest we
June.
would be back.
Yeah,
Back,
if
okay.
the coronavirus is flattened and things are, I understand, are pretty back to normal,
Okay.
you know, and we don't know that today. Yeah.
Anything else we need to say or clarify about the budget? Because I do want to talk about the virus. Other things about this process, how it worked, what's in this budget. Understand that many of the...
There was one thing I would like to point
Okay,
out, and,
all right.
and y'all, but what I understand that we had $100 million in there for cities and counties to go to be divided amongst the 95 counties.
Right.
And the cities across the state.
Grants
well,
or
no, just that was money that was going to be allocated out, a percentage per, depending on population.
Okay.
And then
Kind of a revenue share type.
Right.
Okay.
But instead of that, we put $200 million in that for it, and then another $425 or so thousand dollars per the 15 distressed counties. So a lot of these
In anticipation of this, or was it...
not necessarily.
Okay.
Well, that may be part of it, but I think a lot of them really are in, where do we get our next revenue stream? We're out.
Okay.
And a lot of cities and towns are really struggling, and counties.
So this becomes kind of a state revenue sharing with local government.
I think it is, but since we were running a surplus, I
Right,
mean, as
okay.
of a month or so ago, we were over $500 million in surplus. So I think that was one way to get that money back to the people. And those over collections are simply because we under budgeted. We underspent last year over what we knew we could have.
Okay.
So that's always very important to keep that in mind. And it is set up on a grant program. They will have to apply
for it?
for those. There's an allotment per
Is it for
county.
specific purposes?
There
or?
are some
Okay.
criteria.
All right, so it's not
set
just revenue share, it's a grant
Exactly.
process.
And
Okay.
it can't just go into the general fund for salaries. It's for
Okay.
road projects or
Okay.
there are IT upgrades, things like that.
That's right.
Okay.
yeah.
And then, of course, it can be used now for the virus as well. And I just want to say, Steve, before we leave this, and in a bipartisan way, I think Tennessee, I think we did good in sitting down, putting our heads together and passing something to make sure that Tennesseans will be taken care of. And people can go to tn.gov even right now and click on and listen for all those people with all those questions about how small businesses might get help and even Chamber of Commerce. You call your county mayor, you go to tn.gov, you can go all these places and find out unemployment, all these issues that people have got answers about. They can go to tn.gov and find out how to apply, where to apply, and so forth and
Is
so on.
this part of what's called the emergency relief legislation?
I think so.
Is that it?
I
'Cause there
assume
was a
it
question
would
that was
be.
submitted to us saying the emergency relief legislation that was passed last week by the House seeks to financially help hourly employees overcome economic distress.
Yeah.
Is that,
Well,
or is that a different?
I think that's a different
Different,
It may be.
different set of money.
Yeah.
Because there
Different
was
set of money,
about
okay.
170 million that was
Yeah, this
was
is
put in the
directly related,
budget.
says to the coronavirus.
This
Okay.
this was more directed
All right.
toward that, and it
Okay.
has a lot of leeway with the administration.
Okay.
They have some choices they can make, but they have to report back to us what that money is being used for. And it's very frequent, they have to
Okay.
report that back.
Allow me to get in that in a moment, because I do want to talk about this virus. But as far as the budget, you feel like it was a good process,
Yeah,
good process
I think
all
it
the way through.
was.
And we may see the hearings with the House prior to January continuing.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Who knows?
Like I
Well,
said-
maybe we will.
Governor
follow suit.
McNally, the Senate is the Senate. And so, right. So we'll see if the Senate will pick that up on its own timetable. Okay, the virus. Where are we with this as far as you're concerned? And have we handled this appropriately, or were we slow to respond, or when did it first start percolating in the House and Senate that this is going to change things dramatically for us?
It has changed things dramatically. I do think the state picked it up is probably as early as they could in time. I think states are doing good, but what I do think, Steve, I don't think some of the citizens really understand how this virus affects people, because people are still doing normal things. They're still doing daily shopping, trips, and whatever else, even going on vacation, some of them. And faith-based communities are still having services on Sunday. I think we have got...
Now, Reverend, you're not going to tell me not to go to church.
I am going to tell you, do not go to church Sunday.
Okay.
Okay? I'm going to tell you
But you
that.
can tithe online.
Of course you can tithe online. I mean, we've been able to tithe online all along, but I will tell you, do not go. That's the point I'm making, and I think I said earlier before this interview, I really believe that maybe, and I don't want to get off, but maybe it's the faith-based community that don't understand this as well. And we know God takes care of us. I'm a man of faith, but I do believe that the better law-abiding citizens ought to be the faith-based community. And if the governor of the state of Tennessee asks us not to gather, I think above all people, we should be the first not to gather, but either have online services or, in my case, I'm blessed with a radio station, but those that are not, I think there are many other ways that you can have service. And as Chris said, and I hope he paid his tithe online this last Sunday, tithe online or whatever you need to do. But this is a very serious matter, and the only way we're going to get it under control is being our brother's keeper here. This is not something scientists can do in terms of medication to give us a vaccine or whatever. We got to help each other overcome this. And I think to do that for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we really need to stay at home.
Steve, I believe if you look at the timeline as to how information has come out, it has changed so rapidly. A little over a week ago, we went from the CDC recommendation of not any more than 250 people gathering to overnight it's 10.
10, right.
Yeah.
And so as that information has changed, then we have adapted, and that's really what threw us into this expedited recess session that we were in last week. And it was uncomfortable. We didn't want to shut the public out. We did everything we could to make sure they were still engaged. We were reaching out, members were reaching out to the public to say, please watch online. Monitor everything that's going on, and stay in touch with us. Our phones are going to be right in front of us in committee hearings, on our desk. We're going to be watching for text, emails. We're going to be monitoring your input. And so we gathered that, and it certainly had an impact all the way up till the budget was passed. We had a couple of bills that were, we were going back and forth trying to get tweaked that weren't budget related necessarily, two of which did not make it across the finish line. So we will go back and work on those when we return. But I think when you look at the overall steps that have been taken by the governor and certainly by the legislature, I think the right things have been done at the right time with the information we had that day. You can Monday morning quarterback, but I don't know, Ed, what would your opinion be of that whole process?
Well, I think step by step, and of course we've always, when we were doing the budget and doing our legislative passing bills and hearing committees, we always had our eye on this virus. I said, this thing is really taking hold, especially in China and then going to other countries and then over here. And I think since we had our eye on this thing, and it finally got to the point to where we have to respond to this thing because it's going to just actually take over this country unless we respond. We got to keep the curve down is what everybody's saying.
Flatten the curve.
Flatten the curve.
Okay. One thing that I do believe that the state legislature in Tennessee has done very, very well is once streaming became an option out there, to upgrade its video production and everything else so that every committee hearing, that I believe every committee hearing is streamed. If you follow the calendar and you can go to the state websites and do that, the governor's having a press conference now every day at 3 o'clock, at least you've been doing it Monday through Thursday, that they stream live. But all those committee hearings and everything are available on the internet, so you can sit at home and it's a better seat sometimes than being at the Capitol because those cameras are right in there, the audio and everything else is there, and sometimes you can't find a seat in the committee hearing room. back in the days when they were opened up. But the state, I think, has done an extraordinary job. And I think many people are really not aware of how extensive the coverage is. That if you want to follow a bill, the bill is listed by number, and it give you a progress report on where it is and when the hearing is coming up. It's pretty extraordinary. Used to, I know, in being a reporter up there, you had to go around and follow what was posted on the bulletin boards and talk to people and all this stuff. So the process in those ways is more open.
And you don't have to ask your legislator how he or she voted.
Right, yeah.
Just watch it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, all the videos are archived, so you can go back and watch any of them.
You can go back several years if you want to.
Yeah, and see this. There was some question, some criticism about the caucuses with the Republicans, because when the Republicans caucus now, it's not just a caucus, it's the vast majority. No offense to my Democrat colleague here, but the Republican caucus is the majority. And so there were some questions about the propriety of going behind closed doors for a caucus. The assurance was that nothing is being discussed or voted on that in a way that is leading to votes or manipulating or telling people how to vote.
Oh,
You're
certainly.
in those.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, in Tennessee, we are, vast minority in the country that has open caucuses ever. Most other states don't have any open caucuses to the media or anybody else.
Yeah.
So I was very uncomfortable when I came in last year that we're going to have, it's kind of like a family meeting. Let's get together, let's put our heads together, let's educate each other. If I have an item that I'm concerned about, I want to be able to bring it to the others in my caucus. I want to be able to speak very frankly about that and explain in very short terms sometimes what I'm dealing with. And if I've got somebody from the media standing there that might misunderstand something or leak something out before it's ready for prime time, then I think we need that opportunity. So it's more of a family discussion. There's no votes taken or anything like that.
Being on the outside of that caucus, not that Democrats don't caucus, they do, there's just not the number. The concern is, with the Republican situation, it's a majority.
Yes.
You know, so you can caucus and nudge each other and everything else and come out and start in lockstep. Are you comfortable with that process?
Steve, I am, because, see, I've been there. I've been where he is, and I've been where I am. I've been there. And to tell you the truth, it's much more comfortable in the legislature to get things done for the people you represent to be in the minority.
Okay.
Because now, here's what both these guys would have to tell you is, if you're the majority, you're going to pretty well have to walk step. And if you notice, the caucus, the legislative caucus, the Republican caucus, going to pretty well vote the same way on every bill.
All right.
Because they walking in lockstep. Same thing happened when the Democrats were in power. We walked in lockstep. But now I got a chance to vote the way the 80th district needs me to vote, rather than to vote the way the caucus want me to vote. So the politics of this, I've been on both sides. I'd rather be where I am today. I'm having a lot more fun than this guy. A whole lot much more fun.
Well, does will he cooperate with you to get things done for the 80th district?
Most times when it comes to Jackson, Tennessee, we three guys going to stick right together. But at the end of the day, if you watch, and you just said when you watch the video streaming, each group going to pretty well vote in lockstep for the most part, as far as the caucus. And if you go to a caucus meeting, whether you're in the majority or minority, your leader's going to tell you, this is the way we want you to vote on this bill. Here's why we want you to vote this way, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times I've been uncomfortable because I knew it wasn't what Madison and Hardeman County needed. Okay? All right. So now to have this freedom, hey, I can vote like I need to vote. And I think I know the feeling, I know the pulse of the people in Madison and Hardeman County a heck of a lot better than somebody in East Tennessee does. So I can vote the way I need to vote.
I will say that even in our caucus meetings, that is stressed very explicitly. Vote your district.
Is that right?
The group, as we have a discussion, the group may say, this is where we think, most of us feel like we need to be on this, but you vote your district. You vote how you need to vote. So we have that freedom. There's no arm twisting or anything like that I've experienced to say, you need to vote this way.
And you feel like there is?
Oh, I think there's some arm twisting. I mean, I respectfully disagree.
I'm not saying there's not. I haven't experienced.
There is some, trust me, there is some. Not just Democrats, Republicans, there is some arm twisting occasionally.
Well, if I'm speaker, the reason I'm speaker is to try to get this thing through, right?
Yeah, and rightly so. I mean, if you're speaker, this is what you want to get done.
Where does that come to play then, as far as like when I think about Megasite, which is a something that's of particular interest to us in this area that is not going to be of interest
Well,
to
the mega
somebody?
site is a perfect example.
Okay.
Every legislator and senator in West Tennessee wants the mega site, but there are people in East Tennessee don't particularly care.
Right, well,
about
they've
the
already
mega
got
site.
theirs. They got Chattanooga, and they got Volkswagen. That's enough. We don't need more mega sites.
You make a very valid point. So, and I remember when we did the 4-H down in Hardeman County, you know, we had legislators stand up and talk about how useless the property was, all of those things.
Okay.
So, you know, it depends on what part of the state it's in, because we have to understand that we live in 3 states in Tennessee. We live in West Tennessee, we live in Middle Tennessee, and we live in East Tennessee. Okay. And those are 3 different states all in one. Mm-hmm. I mean, and we gotta remember, we can't get away from that. And the politics of that is everybody is working for their own little turf. Yeah.
All right. What do we do in West Tennessee to help maintain our power and base then?
We have a West Tennessee Economic Caucus.
Yeah,
okay.
we do.
All 31 members of the legislature, Democrat, Republican, are members of that caucus.
Yeah. Okay.
And we meet regularly, actually. We have for over a year now, I think.
Yeah.
And
So it's something that was recently formed?
Yeah, recently formed.
Because I remember years ago, you know, it was like, of course, politics has changed dramatically in this state in my lifetime. But, you know, at one time the Shelby County delegation, Shelby County caucus was the caucus.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the state was run out of Memphis, Tennessee, and all that stuff. And all that has changed, the demographics, the population, and the economic power. Because there was a time that, right, Memphis was the number, Shelby County was number 1 on the license plate. We were number 7. And, you know, if we still had the numerical order, I don't know where we'd be, but we wouldn't be in the top 10.
A little further back.
Yeah, a little bit further back. So things have changed. So there is a caucus, and it does work. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have met in primarily about the.
Does it have officers or whatever?
No,
it's just a group.
We just have a leader.
Representative Mark White pretty much
is
has
our
headed
leader.
it up.
Yeah.
Put it together.
In the House.
What was the prompting for that?
Because we
What we
West
just talked
Tennessee.
about.
The mega site?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Mega site,
Okay.
and then just economic development in West Tennessee. We're losing population, some counties here in West Tennessee, and we need to address that. And so,
Well, I think Mayor Franklin Smith in Haywood County, you know, said my county's been going down in population ever since this for the last few decades.
Yeah.
And I think it was part of the impetus that he had to say, hey, we got to get something here, or I'm going to lose my county.
And I'll give you another example that we worked on even last week, and that is the Great Wolf Lodge.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a very concerted effort last week to try to influence the budget, the whole process from this West Tennessee caucus
Okay.
to make sure the money that had been promised them was in the budget. Unfortunately, it didn't get put in. That they basically stripped everything out of the budget that had been proposed.
The they is
The administration.
Administration,
Out
okay.
of their
All right,
proposed
okay,
budget. They
okay.
stripped everything out, their agenda, everything that had pretty much been discussed, other than just continuing where we were this current fiscal year, put it on a shelf. And so they have incentive to come back. They want us to come back. We all want to come back and finish our business. But we really fought hard for that. And one of the concessions that we have there is that there is going to be a concerted effort immediately to work on an alternative for the Great Wolf Lodge, maybe even something that they wanted originally that would be just as palatable for the state.
Okay.
So that's being worked on as we speak.
Okay. Are y'all pleased with the process, the way things have gone this session? Then overall, you said with the budget and everything else, you feel like okay.
I guess under the conditions in which we have to work, I think we are. I think we all had something else told in. Man, you got to understand, man, this hit us like a ton of bricks. Yeah.
You pleased with the work the governor's done, the way the governor's handling this so far?
I think,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, most things, yeah.
You have any feel for how long this lasts? I mean, I think most now, you know, the governor said until April, whatever, and you know.
Are you giving some kind of
Well, no, I mean,
incentive for
here's what I
Memphis to
know.
give you a date?
You know, of course, you
We
know,
don't know.
This is a utility company, and very much attached to the cash flow of community and everything else. And it was like, you know, the meetings are every day because the situation. I mean, you didn't know 2 weeks ago the restaurants are going to be closed, and there are going to be no concert venues and no movie theaters, and that, you know, a significant percentage percent of your business community is being shut down here, and it was not anticipated, and it changed day to day. As you said, it was 250 and then 50 and 10.
The economic impact, Steve, is going to be awesome. And I mean, we don't want to put economics in front of health, but it's going to be awesome. I mean, can you imagine?
Well, I think the president began to say we can't lose this country, right, and this economy totally to stop a virus. So I don't know what the priority is.
We can't, but I think health comes before economics, but, you know, that's our president. I won't talk about him. Yeah. But can you imagine? Beauty shops, barber shops, small shops, and mom and pops.
Well, you're in the advertising radio business, right?
All of these things.
Small business too.
I mean, they're all going to suffer. I think we all going to be hit pretty hard until probably, the 1st of June, until things kind of kick in. I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, because people need to survive somehow. Yeah.
This is a special edition of Capitol Talk. It's in a totally different format. We appreciate the Chamber looking to us to help facilitate this. State Representative Chris Todd is with us, State Representative Johnny Shaw, and State Senator Ed Jackson. One question that did come in was about the emergency fund, the emergency relief fund legislation passed by the House to financially help hourly employees overcome economic distress caused by the coronavirus, providing paid sick leave for workers. However, employers with 500 or more employees are excluded, and businesses with 50 or fewer employees may seek a waiver exempting its workers. And the question is these exceptions, are they good, or would you like to see it done differently? And I'm just not familiar with this.
Well, and I'll have to say I'm not familiar with that either.
Okay.
That's I'm not sure that
is
that
actually what passed.
description at least got in the budget.
Well, it was a submitted question, and so I
think it was probably they should go to the Department of Labor for that.
Okay.
I would think that, again, tn.gov, but probably the Department of Labor would have it, because see, there again is, we just got through saying this is affecting so many people in so many ways. How do you structure anything to say this is for you and this is for you and this is for you? I think people are just going to have to reach out wherever they can and whenever they can to get the help they need. Small Business Administration, you know.
We are, obviously the discussion that's going on as we do this is at the federal level with they're talking about $2 trillion or whatever. The state of Tennessee plays into this how? In administering these kind of funds, do they come through, or are there things in the state budget itself that you already talked about? There's relief, special things for local governments.
I think it'd be some of both. I expect the two things you're probably going to see more than anything would be the unemployment fund, which we have over $1 billion in the unemployment fund. That's funded by employers. Okay. And that's going to be hit.
That's going to be hit hard.
I think the federal government probably, I expect, will have some relief for that, so that that's not totally picked up by our employers. The other thing is the TANF funds that I think there's been some changes in requirements and the amounts of money. There've been some waivers asked for, so that those funds can be utilized for folks during this time frame much more quickly. They can get cash assistance for certain things as they're searching for new employment and just trying to survive. Okay,
we'll see how that goes. I certainly think, and this is a personal comment, when you're watching what's going on in Washington, the hope is that the focus can be on getting the money needed for business and people and whatever, however they decide to do that, rather than loading this thing up with, and we talked to Congressman Kustoff about that, with addendums or political agenda or whatever. There's going to be a time for that, and not to say that any of these things are not important, depending on your political view. But man, it can complicate the process. It's bogged it down already, because the expectation was it was going to be done over the weekend and then every day, and it may be done today. But it has run into more difficulty than you would think. A pandemic should be able to bring us together, I would think. And it seems that in D.C., not even a pandemic can do that so far. Another question that was submitted said, I am asking each of you to please briefly, if you will, explain Governor Lee's permitless handgun carry bill and whether or not you support it or not. And so that legislation, Chris, you want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
I not only support it, I had my own legislation that I have begun running kind of behind the governor's proposed bill, that mine would be for concealed carry only, permitless concealed.
What does the governor's bill do?
It is fully open carry or concealed carry without a permit. So it would be constitutional carry, what would be considered by most constitutional carry. And again, I believe that goes back to the foundations of our Constitution, of the U.S. Constitution, which we're all bound to abide by, and that is the right to keep and bear arms. Keep and bear shall not be infringed, period. And we have convoluted that over the years. We've tried to put restrictions on it. Folks compare it to a driver's license, that we put restrictions on being able to drive. That's not a right guaranteed by the Constitution.
Okay.
But your First Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights are in the Constitution. And so I think they're very valuable to protect. And this just gets us back to what that Constitution says.
Okay.
Well, you know, I don't know. I probably have a little bit different perspective of it because I think it could be, it is a right to bear arms, and I'm all in favor of that. But I think we are just kind of loosening the screw a little bit too much when we say you can just open the carry. And then too, I think for those people who've already bought those lifetime permits, you're going to give them that money back? Because it's unfair if you bought a lifetime permit and now I can just take my gun free and don't do anything.
Well, except for one thing, I don't mean to interrupt, but that's the reciprocity with other states. I have that lifetime, and I want to keep that. And as a matter of fact, other states have shown.
Because that's recognized elsewhere?
Yes.
Where a permitless carry is not.
Other states that have done this very thing, where they've had constitutional carry passed after they had a permit, have seen an increase in sales of those permits because folks get used to carrying at home. They want to carry when they're on vacation or traveling.
Okay.
But for me, you know, I'm like with the virus. I got a little faith somewhere. I just don't think a gun is all I need.
Okay.
I think I need more than a gun. And I think the thing that kind of surprised me, the governor being a man of faith, that he would see it that way. I thought he'd probably see it a little more in line of a little more structure, because at the end of the day, everybody already got guns. How does that help your police officer? If you're going to hire him to protect you, then you're going to protect yourself. Everybody get to shoot and somebody will wind up in the wrong place. So I got my thoughts about it, and I respect others, but I would not have voted for it. No, I would not have.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a constitutional right. There's no question about that, and it is Second Amendment to the Constitution. I've got my carry permit. I've had it for many, many years. Marilyn and my daughter Jeannie, they both have their carry permit and have for years. I guess the only thing that I would like to see, and it may not happen, probably won't happen, but would be to have a training component. Strongly, not mandate, but strongly urge people who are not familiar with a firearm to be trained. You know, I was trained in the Army. My dad trained me when I was a young boy. Some people don't have that. So I'd like to see maybe something like that possibly added to it to strongly encourage people to be trained and go to the range, learn how to fire a weapon and when to.
Well, of course, we could do a whole show on this. Maybe sometime we get back and do this. Because in the Constitution, there's militia attached to that. And we really don't have militia anymore. We have National Guard that could be federalized, you know, which is kind of an odd thing out there. I mean, a lot of this we've gotten away from in concept, and I wonder about that. I've got a First Amendment right to assemble, guaranteed in the Constitution, and you've told me not to go to church.
No, I did not. I did not. I asked you not to go.
Okay.
No, I did not ask you not to go.
Ask me not to go. So you're not going.
And that is
if I get 100 people praying together on Court Square, you're not going to come down there and have me arrested.
No. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I asked you not to go, but secondly, I think that's where we get back to, and you're right, we can do a whole show on this for a long time, but this is when you get back, if you talk about constitutional rights, the only thing that's strange about in this country today is one thing: the only constitutional right folks push is the right to bear arms.
Oh, okay.
There are other constitutional rights we don't talk about.
Okay.
So I'm saying...
Such as, what would...
Well, I mean, equal pay.
Okay.
Opportunities.
Okay.
A whole lot of things we'll talk about. But I did not tell you not to go to church on Sunday. I asked you not to go to church. Because of the coronavirus. Let's clear it up, folks. Let me look at that camera.
I said the other day,
Steve Bowers trying to put me on the spot.
I said the other day, you know, the government saying you shouldn't and the government saying you can't are two different things, right?
Well, now, the governor didn't say you couldn't. He asked you not to.
Asking.
Nobody gave an order for anybody not to go anywhere. We are asking people.
And you feel like it's a prudent, wise, and faithful thing to do? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad we got that clarified.
Yes. All right.
because I felt my First Amendment rights had been violated right here on this
Right here on this show.
You know,
No,
and
but
free,
you didn't get it that
and
time.
free expression of religion.
All right.
right.
And
which we
Chris
all-
is going to pay his time.
yeah, we did establish tithing online
Yes.
and whatever. All right, so where do we go from here now? When you get back together in June, things that you're still looking to do, and you mentioned the Wolf Lodge and some other projects out here. There are other things on the agenda?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are a lot of, I mean, literally, things were put on pause. So everything that's in a certain committee will immediately, that calendar will be taken up the very first day we're back.
Yes,
And you'll probably go from there to priorities.
And
What
some
are
of the
priorities?
clerks and different people who had amendments in the budget, I'm sure they're going to want us to go back and look at those things.
Will there be committee meetings called in this interim or anything like that, or everything is just as smooth? We're not going to get together at all.
Everything's
we're
closed.
we're going to just shut down, but the understanding is the expectation we pick back up June 1st.
Yeah.
Then what is on your mind? What are some other things you're looking to do, Chris?
Well, certainly those two that you mentioned, the constitutional carry and the Great Wolf Lodge, anxious to see. In the interim, there could be something worked out between now and when we go back. But if it's not, then we're really going to be pushing on that commitment that's already been made to them to make sure that's secured. I have a number of bills, working on something for nonprofits. I'm not too hopeful for it because of the information that we've been getting, but we've discovered that nonprofits that have fundraisers that are more than a couple of times a year, like if they have very routine fundraisers where they're selling things, even auction items, they're actually subject to sales tax according to the Department of Revenue. And I did not know that before a few months ago, so we've been working on that, and it's been frustrating because it's hard to get information. Their data system, the way it's set up, it's hard for them to pull information out that I need in order to structure this bill so that we can get it across the finish line. And
you want to exempt all that fundraising?
I want to exempt them from sales tax, period. And
Has there ever been a collection of sales tax by the Department of Revenue on a fundraiser?
I understand there has been.
Been.
They have told us that they
wow.
raise over $26 million a year from nonprofits in this state in sales tax. That's state revenue, and over $9 million a year in local revenue.
Wow.
I had no idea. So the fiscal note, if we say we're eliminating
that, is going to be pretty
is significant, and that's going to be a very hard thing to get.
Okay. What is the mechanism? I mean, y'all all worked a lot.
They're supposed to file it.
File it, okay.
Yeah, they're supposed to. Now,
I've never heard of it. Of course, of course, I'm on, board memberships, there's boards and an executive board. The executive board gets into all that, but I haven't heard of that. Oh, yeah, let's be sure we're going to file. And it may be being done, I don't know. So you can only have so many fundraisers per year that are tax-free.
Two. No more than two.
No more than two.
No more than
Tax-free.
two.
Wow.
And neither one can last more than 30 days in legal.
But we're collecting in the state of Tennessee over $30 million in revenue, counting state and local together.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
About 35.
You're going to hear from local government if they're losing $9 million, and the state if they're losing 26.
And that's a big deal to me, and I know these my colleagues.
How did that come to your attention?
Well, some local folks in
that were having to file
that
this.
are in nonprofits.
Okay.
They changed one particular group changed CPAs to a new CPA in Nashville.
Okay, and the CPA
and the
said,
CPA
hey.
said, I don't see where you've been paying sales tax. And they said, we're not supposed to pay. We're exempt. And, no, you're not.
No, you're not. Wow.
The
So
way
it was a CPA firm out of Nashville that knew from. Okay. Wow.
Yes. Then again, I'm still trying to verify all that
The
information.
CPA says not only do you owe this, you owe for the last 40. How long have you been in existence?
3 years.
40.
Well, 3 years.
The Cotillion Club has been here since 19. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, very
fascinating. All right, that'll be fascinating.
Well, the same difference. Great Wolf, certainly, because, I mean, where I really thought we had that one under our belt, until we had to abruptly close that. And certainly, I want to make sure, and I know that we're talking about a new board for the mega site.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, now that has not developed yet, but they're talking about creating a new board.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
but
go right ahead.
I don't know that it will be a new board, but we're looking at a new direction.
New direction.
For the board.
Yeah.
For the board.
Yeah,
Right
for the
now-
board, and maybe some new board members. I don't know.
Because right now the board is composed of.
Several mayors.
Okay.
and then
Are they
some
appointed by
other
the
appointed.
governor?
Some are automatic. If they're in a certain county, they're automatic.
So the legislation would do what then to that direction?
Well, we would not, I don't think we would be creating new legislation. I think we would be look at, well, we may have to have some legislation if we're going to send the board in a new direction, but basically what I think we want to do is to make sure the board understand their authority to act. And I'm hearing, again, I stand corrected, but I'm hearing that maybe board members didn't know they had as much authority as they had. So we want to make sure they understand they got the authority to keep moving this project forward, to move forward with it. And of course, anything that create local jobs in West Tennessee and to build West Tennessee, because again, I'm not going to be worried too much about the guys up in Middle and East Tennessee. They're going to get theirs. I'm just looking at what we can bring home for the folks down here in West Tennessee, because we are a little bit behind on some issues.
Yeah. Years ago, Senator Alexander came in. It may have been a chamber event or luncheon or something. He spoke at our chamber event. He said the key thing with mega sites, he said, is patience. And I thought, and I haven't forgotten it, and because it gets frustrating at times. But he said, don't sell yourself short or chop it up or do something small when you can hold out. And he said, you know, he said, but it takes patience, because the pressure is we've spent this amount of money. It's been this long. We need something happening out here.
And that's it. I don't want to see
it
the
is
money
a large
wasted.
site. It's an amazing site, really, when you look at it. I mean, you know, Franklin Smith, to his credit, and the people in Haywood County put that thing together. You know, and you can argue there may be more than we needed, but
I mean, we put millions of dollars there.
But you feel like right next to the interstate that one of these days we'll look back and it'll be an amazing thing. But
Well, it took many years to do Volkswagen. And,
well, that was the thing they were talking about, you know, and there was temptation in Chattanooga to say, well, let's do something.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, no, let's wait, because they had to go back in and level that land, right, if I remember right, from to take it back to Volkswagen and say, okay, now it's leveled, trees are gone.
But because of all of that we are dealing with now, we don't know how much money is going to be laying around that we can dedicate to different projects now, because again, who knows what this virus is going to cost us.
Senator, what are you working on?
Well, of course, the Great Wolf Lodge is really number one by far in what I think we need to focus on. It's going to be a huge game changer for West Tennessee, rural West Tennessee, and just the whole, this end of the state.
Looking at the state of the state, when you hear the state of the state now, and we still have that, and the governor was gracious to come to West Tennessee and to come to Lane College to do that. What an historic moment, I think. It's almost like the times have changed this, but there was a lot of emphasis on education. We're going to drive performance and all this other stuff. Real emphasis, I know, in an area you've been involved in, we need to change the way we do corrections in the state. Can that momentum come back into this process?
Yes.
Now?
Oh, yeah, it's going to have to, because the corrections and Chris is on corrections also in the House.
Okay.
Those are the budget for correction just keeps going up and up and up, and we've got to. There are other states are doing things that are making a difference, and their budgets are going down, even closing prisons in Texas.
Okay.
So those are things that we're looking at and trying to do.
Okay, because I would think this has been a very disruptive event. This virus has.
And Steve, I know nothing's going to happen this year, but I'm not an educator, but here's what I know. We do not put enough emphasis on early childhood education in Tennessee. I mean, we pour dollars into it, and I love things we're doing, but until we back up and start looking at how we develop children at an early age, we're never going to get the bang for our buck in education.
So what do you?
Well, I had a bill, of course, it didn't get very far to provide pre-K for across the state. Naturally, there was a $20-something billion, fiscal note that didn't go anywhere, and I knew it wouldn't this year.
Okay.
But we still need to keep bringing that up. We need to keep putting that on our leaders' mind, because if you don't start a child early, you're not going to develop that child into a productive man or woman.
Okay.
And I just think early childhood is where we need to really focus.
Yeah.
See, there's one thing we didn't talk about in the budget that we did, and some bills outside the budget.
Right.
That was to make sure that our educational folks, public education folks, were kept whole.
Okay.
So one of the things we passed was that we waived the 180-day rule, where they don't have to be in class that many days for this year in order to complete the year. We made sure that they will be made whole financially through the BEP, even though they're not sitting in seats. So all of that's generally governed by attendance, and so we waived that and the testing requirements this year, so that they don't have that cloud over them. So there were a number of things we scrambled to do last week in order to make sure that our public education folks were made whole. Even in Shelby and Davidson counties, there was about $41 million put back to make sure that those two districts are kept whole with the early implementation of the Educational Savings Account program.
Right.
And that got a little contentious toward the end because folks misunderstood what it was for. It was perceived, at least advertised by some, that it was for ESAs when it was not. It was for the school systems.
Okay.
So they wouldn't have any absence of money if a number of students took advantage of those ESAs this year.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
well, we appreciate it. Give y'all a chance to close. We got a camera here. If you want to start,
Yeah.
Senator, or whatever,
Yeah.
and whatever you'd like to say.
One thing that has been done, and I think this is really good that Governor Lee has done, is the COVID-19 Unified Command. He passed this resolution a couple of days ago, and it's a joint effort to streamline the coordination between the emergency management, the TEMA, Department of Health, and Department of Military, to come up with ways to better address the issues with the shortage of test kits, shortage of respirator, whatever that might be. And so this is something that was done, and I think that should be brought out. A lot of people don't know about this. It's going to help our state to recover quicker.
Okay. Representative Shaw.
Well, I just want to thank you for having us today. I appreciate it. I appreciate being able to serve the people of the 80th District. I'd like to continue, and thank you for having me.
Steve, I appreciate the opportunity, too, to share these things that a lot of them happened so fast last week that we've been trying to communicate with our folks as to what really was done. And to a point you made earlier about the timing of where we are in this COVID-19 process and this whole developing situation, I think some of the dates that had been put on, some of the executive orders and the suggestions and mandates are probably tentative. I think depending on what the numbers do over the next several days and week, we may know more, we will know more, and that may change some of those dates, those target dates that all of us will have to adjust to. And I've just continued to encourage from the mayor up to keep in mind that folks still have to live, they still have to eat, they still have to move around and do their normal activities within reason. If we educate them on the risks that are involved, not only to themselves, but to the folks they come in contact with, I think they will make the right choice. We've been seeing that already. Coming down here this afternoon, you know, there's not that many cars on the road. Folks are staying in like is being suggested, and it's very critical that we do that and make sure that they continue to be educated. And so I look forward to opportunities for that task force that's been formed and others to bring that to light, make sure that folks have the right information.
It's one of the most, we've been through a lot of things in our lifetime. Civil rights and a lot of other things when social order is changing out there. This is a different thing, and I have, you know, on a personal way, been very concerned. You know, like I said, you know, I do have a right to assemble. That I want to. It's what makes America America. You know,
Sure.
And we have a free market economy. I mean, we've regulated, done some things that have stabilized it. We have a regulated currency and FDIC backing for our deposits in the banks. I mean, we've evolved a lot of things here, and I think, but in its core, it has been an independent. We're an independent people with the right to our viewpoints and opinions, whomever we are, and it's you know, and when people start telling you what you can and should do and everything else, it becomes a delicate thing out there. And you want to protect health, and all this stuff. We still sell cigarettes in this country, even though we know it kills people, because you know we protect the right to be ignorant every once in a while. And so it's an odd balance. And to see, you know, to go to a grocery store and see empty shelves aisle after aisle is a disconcerting thing of what we can do to ourselves. Is what we can do to ourselves in a panic situation. So I hope people have confidence in this country and protect this country, and the state of Tennessee, and I think people that are in public office are intending to do well in these circumstances. And we're not going to always agree, but at heart, I still feel like we have to protect what we are as a people. We can't give it away or let somebody take it away, well-intentioned. And I don't know what that balance is, because if I get sick or whatever, and I'm in that age group, not that my colleagues may or may not be, but you know, it is a very, very careful thing. But you know, we do have a country to keep, I think, in the midst of all this, and I hope we will. appreciate all of you taking time to do this. Thanks to the Chamber and to Ryan Porter and everybody else for being here. State Representative Chris Todd, State Representative Johnny Shaw, and State Senator Ed Jackson. And we appreciate the Chamber setting this up, and we're glad to be able to utilize the facilities of ePlusTV6 and ePlusTV6.com and YouTube to share this. Once again, thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for being with us, and Ryan and everybody with the Chamber and Kyle and everyone else for putting this together. And we certainly appreciate this opportunity. God bless. God bless this state. God bless this country.
Where's Tommy?
I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack.
Tommy? Don't stop. Keep playing. Here we go. Here's the fun part.
Encouragement. Pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life.